The crystal chandeliers of the Hawthorne mansion shimmered like 1,000 tiny suns, throwing flecks of light across the vast ballroom. Guests in floor-length gowns and tailored tuxedos moved like ghosts across polished marble, their laughter gliding just above the swell of the orchestra. Everything gleamed: silver platters, diamond necklaces, champagne flutes filled with gold-tinged Dom Perignon. It was Ethan Ashwood's 30th birthday, and no expense had been spared. At the center of it all stood Ethan himself, golden god among men. 6 feet tall, with a sculpted jaw, dark hair slicked with care, and the effortless charm of someone who had never truly struggled for anything. His tuxedo was Tom Ford, his cufflinks were Cartier, and the smile he flashed at every guest was as rehearsed and strategic as a politician's speech. Everyone adored him or wanted something from him, often both. He made his rounds like a king surveying his court. "Ethan, you devil, this is incredible," gushed Senator White's wife, clutching his arm with manicured fingers. "Thank you, Patricia," he said smoothly, his voice like aged whiskey. "Only the best for the people I adore." Yet behind his polished grin, Ethan's eyes were scanning the crowd. He wasn't looking for praise or investors. He was searching for someone who was noticeably absent: Olivia, his wife, the woman the world believed was resting at home, too pregnant to attend. It was a believable lie. Olivia Ashwood was 6 months along, after all, and her recent public appearances had grown rare. But Ethan knew she wasn't at their estate, and her silence was beginning to unnerve him. Still, he brushed the thought away as a familiar hand slipped around his arm. "You promised me a dance," whispered Sophia, her lips brushing against his ear. She was impossibly beautiful in a black velvet gown with a slit that threatened scandal. And Ethan, for all his cold calculation, was weak to beauty. As they swayed under the glittering lights, their bodies too close to be appropriate, a few guests exchanged polite, knowing smiles. The rich and powerful had always played by different rules. Mistresses were accessories, whispers, not scandals. Besides, Olivia was too classy, too composed to make a scene, or so they thought. Outside the mansion, a sleek black car pulled to the grand entrance. The valet paused, eyes widening slightly as the passenger door opened. Olivia Ashwood stepped out, her silhouette illuminated by the golden light spilling from the marble archway. She wore a deep emerald gown that hugged her rounded figure, her hair swept into a regal twist. One hand rested protectively on her belly. The other clutched a thick manila envelope. No security tried to stop her. They knew her face knew better than to question her presence. As she walked through the entrance hall, heads began to turn. Conversations faltered. The orchestra missed a note. It was like a ghost had appeared. "Olivia," someone whispered. She walked with purpose, heels clicking on the marble floor like gunshots in a chapel. The envelope in her hand was heavy with consequence, filled with documents, bank statements, and a signed affidavit from one of Ethan's own accountants. Months of quiet, deliberate preparation had led to this moment. Inside the ballroom, Ethan froze. His dance with Sophia ended mid-spin. His eyes locked onto Olivia's like a man staring down a firing squad. The music died. The crowd parted instinctively, stepping back the way people do before witnessing something catastrophic. Olivia stopped a few feet away from him. "Darling," she said, her voice calm, controlled. "I came to give you your birthday present." There was a beat of silence, and then she handed him the envelope. He took it, hesitantly, opened it. His eyes darted over the first few pages: legal jargon, asset charts, proof of infidelity, embezzlement trails traced through her name. Then his face paled. "What is this?" he whispered. Her smile was icy. "It's what's left of your empire, and the notice that it now belongs to me." Gasps rippled through the crowd. Phones discreetly lifted. A video was already trending on social media by the time Ethan stumbled backward. Stunned, Sophia tried to retreat, but Olivia turned her gaze on the mistress with terrifying serenity. "And you," she said, "the necklace you're wearing, I bought it. With my trust, I'd like it back before you leave." Sophia, humiliated, tore the necklace off and shoved it into Olivia's hand before fleeing through the back. "Olivia, we can talk about this," Ethan stammered, but she was already walking away. The envelope had done its job as she passed. By the shocked crowd, she nodded politely. "Enjoy the cake," she said. And then, just like that, Olivia disappeared into the night. He whispers began before Olivia even reached her car. Inside the ballroom, the Ashwood name was no longer synonymous with invincibility. Guests were already murmuring behind manicured hands, texting media contacts under dinner tables, refreshing gossip blogs. Ethan Ashwood's perfect world had cracked in public, and there was no plugging the leak. But Olivia wasn't thinking about the guests, or Sophia, or the whispers. She was thinking about how it all began. 6 months earlier, the first sign had been subtle. Ethan had returned home from a meeting with a crooked smile and the scent of floral. Perfume she didn't own clinging to his collar. She didn't mention it, not then. She told herself it was her hormones playing tricks, that pregnancy made you suspicious. Besides, Ethan was a charming man. Women flirted with him all the time. He was used to attention. But then there was the second clue, a receipt left in his coat pocket. A luxury hotel suite, midweek, for 2 nights. He told her it was for a visiting investor. Olivia nodded, kissed his cheek, and said nothing. She started watching, waiting. The late nights, the business trips, the sudden obsession with fitness, his cleaner diet, the cologne he'd never worn before, the casual cruelty that crept into his tone when he thought she wasn't listening. And then, the final straw, a text. It buzzed across his phone one morning while he was in the shower. Olivia wasn't snooping. He had simply left it on the nightstand. "Last night was heaven. I love you. I can't wait until she's out of the picture." Her hands didn't tremble when she read it. They curled slowly into fists. And just like that, her love for Ethan Ashwood died a swift, silent death. Olivia hadn't always been the type of woman to plot revenge. She had once loved Ethan, adored him, believed in the story they had sold the world. A golden couple in a mansion on a hill, building a legacy. But when she read that text, something ancient stirred in her the steel-blooded instincts of her father, Richard Langford. A man who had clawed his way out of post-war poverty to become one of the most respected and feared financiers in the country. Richard had always told her, "Olivia, power is never given, it's taken." So she began taking, quietly. Her first move was hiring Harper West. Harper was an elite divorce attorney whose client list included heiresses, politicians, and Hollywood royalty. She was discreet, vicious, and utterly brilliant. Olivia didn't want a sympathetic ear, she wanted a weapon. "I don't want half," Olivia said in their first meeting. "I want it all." Harper arched a brow, impressed. "Then we'll need leverage." Olivia gave it to her. Over weeks, she gathered documents, account passwords, asset records, forged deeds. She traced transfers Ethan had made using her name to shield his backdoor deals. Shell companies, dummy accounts moves, meant to impress other billionaires at the poker table, all made possible with her inherited wealth. Ethan had been sloppy, arrogant. He had assumed her silence meant ignorance. He had forgotten who her father was. While Ethan played the part of the perfect husband in public, attending charity galas and baby boutique openings, Vivia built her arsenal. She stayed quiet, pretended to nap more, let him believe she was delicate, distracted by hormones. And then, like a tactician awaiting the ideal battlefield, she picked the place to strike. Ethan's 30th birthday, a night full of witnesses, press, and key investors. A night he would never forget. Back to the present, the car's leather seats were cool against Olivia's back as she sank into them, her heart still beating hard, not from fear, but from adrenaline. As the driver pulled away from the mansion, the envelope now in Ethan's hands felt like a detonator. She had pulled the pin. The explosion would unfold in slow motion. Harper had already filed for emergency financial injunctions with the court. By morning, half the Ashwood assets would be frozen. And that was just the beginning. Olivia would win in the court of law, yes, but she was also winning in the court of public opinion. That mattered more than people admitted. She knew how scandals spread, how images tarnished. Her video was already trending, and Ethan's smile, the very currency of his influence, was now stained with shame. Across the city, the fallout begins. Ethan stood frozen in the ballroom, Olivia's words ringing in his ears like gunfire. Everything you built was built on me. He looked down at the envelope again, flipping through the documents. Legal terms he barely understood blurred on the page. Misappropriation, fraudulent consent, fiduciary abuse. Investors began excusing themselves. His father's trusted advisors were already whispering by the fireplace. Sophia had vanished, and reporters were gathering outside. The walls of the Hawthorne mansion seemed to close in on him. Later that night, Harper called Olivia. He's already calling lawyers. They'll try to spin it. Let them, Olivia replied. By the time they react, I'll be 10 steps ahead. And your father's foundation. Transferring it back under my control tonight, Olivia said. I'll clean the Langford, Namand bury the Ashwood one. There was a pause. You know, Olivia, Harper said slowly, you could have just divorced him. Quietly, you'd still have walked away with plenty. I'm not looking for plenty, Olivia said. I'm looking for justice. The morning after Ethan Ashwood's 30th birthday party, Los Angeles didn't wake up, ignited by dawn. The gossip blogs were ablaze with footage of Olivia Ashwood's surprise arrival. Paparazzi lenses had captured the precise moment she stepped into the ballroom, pregnant and poised, holding an envelope like a sword. The tabloids had headlines like, "Mistress on the dance floor," "Wife with the paperwork," "Olivia Ashwood goes nuclear golden boy," "Ethan exposed," "Mistress," "Money," and "Maternity," "The billionaire who played with fire and got burned." Ethan Ashwood's empire wasn't crumbling, it was combusting. The Ashwood boardroom to 9 a.m. Ethan sat at the head of the long glass conference table in yesterday's tuxedo shirt, now wrinkled and stained with spilled scotch. Around him sat silent board members, most of whom had already received frantic calls from lawyers and media agents. His father, Gregory Ashwood, loomed in the corner like a storm cloud, waiting to strike. "Do you understand what you've done?" Gregory said at last, voice low and venomous. Ethan leaned forward, palms flat on the table. "It's being exaggerated. It's personal. I'll clean it up. No, you won't. Gregory's tone cut like ice. She brought proof. Financial misappropriation. You used her name for shell accounts without consent. Temporarily, she benefited. She's the victim, Ethan. A silence fell. Someone coughed. Effective immediately, Gregory continued. You're stepping down. The board will appoint a crisis team to limit damage. Olivia is not just your wife, she's a Langford. And now she's a martyr. You don't recover from that. Langford West law officers, las 11:45 alto m. Olivia walked into the glass-walled office building with the calm of a general post. Dressed in a structured white coat, her presence sent paralegals scattering. Harper West waited for her in a private meeting room, already fielding calls from Vanity Fair and 60 Minutes. We have enough, Harper said, spreading out files. But we can go further. The house in Aspen, bought through an offshore trust in her name, that's marital fraud. The yacht, registered in the Caymans but paid for with Langford dividends. Olivia's eyes narrowed. I want it liquidated. All of it, everything with his name on it. I don't want pieces, I want him to know what it's like to lose everything. Harper smirked. Consider it done. The mistress unravels Sophia Hale's phone hadn't stopped ringing since the night before. She was used to attention, but not this kind. Olivia's public reveal had dragged her into the spotlight she wasn't prepared for. Outside her Beverly Hills condo, journalists camped on the sidewalk. Brands she modeled for suspended partnerships. Designers pulled deals. Her career, once glittering, now smelled of scandal. Then came the subpoena. Sophia Hale, as a potential witness to Ethan's financial impropriety and extramarital conduct, was required to testify. Publicly, Harper West's genius was evident everywhere. The public turns within 48 hours. Olivia was no longer just a betrayed wife, she was a phoenix rising from the ashes. Social media crowned her a queen. Think pieces trended under hashtags like #Olivia did it right and #mistress at the ball. Even mainstream media ran profiles on the Langford legacy and Olivia's quiet intelligence, her charitable work, her calm in the storm. A viral clip of her calmly handing Ethan the envelope at the party was set to orchestral music and shared millions of times. Comments called her iconic, graceful vengeance, the new face of high society feminism. And Olivia, she said nothing. That silence only made her louder. Private meeting, Gregory and Olivia at the Ashwood estate. Gregory invited her for tea, a rare move. You've gutted my son, he said bluntly. Olivia stirred her drink without flinching. No, he did that to himself. I just handed him the mirror. He paused, studying her. You want the company? I want control. I want to ensure what's mine stays mine. And I want no Langford asset ever tied to the Ashwood name again. Gregory sighed. You remind me of your father. High praise. Or a warning, she stood. Either way, I'm not scared. Court filing data, courtroom buzzed with hushed voices as Olivia's team entered Harper at the front, a small army of legal aides in tow. Ethan arrived with a new team of attorneys, less polished than Olivia's, more desperate. Cameras flashed, reporters whispered. The judge reviewed the documents, his expression unreadable. Your Honor, Harper said, voice crisp, we present irrefutable proof of forged signatures, misappropriation of trust funds, and defamation of spousal credit. We're asking for full financial compensation, asset liquidation, and majority custody of jointly owned properties. Ethan tried to speak, but Harper cut in like a scalpel. "And let the record show," she said. "My client is due in 2 months. Her primary concern is protecting her child from inheriting a broken empire." The courtroom fell silent. Even Ethan looked shaken. The final blow, for now that evening, the news broke. A judge had frozen the Ashwood accounts. The Hawthorne estate was under court-ordered review. The private jet grounded. The yacht impounded. Olivia was granted immediate use of the Beverly Hills house and interim custody of shared properties in a single day. Ethan's net worth dropped by 70%. And Olivia, she didn't celebrate. She simply stood by a window, one hand resting on her stomach, watching the city flicker below. "Almost there," she whispered. The name Ashwood once meant power, prestige, and privilege. Now, it was a scandal that echoed across the marble halls of Wall Street and rippled through the luxury corridors of Beverly Hills. Ethan Ashwood, the heir who once commanded boardrooms and red carpets, was facing not just social disgrace, but professional ruin. And Olivia, she was still silent, still elegant, still undefeated. But the reckoning had only just begun. Ethan in exile, he stared at the vacant driveway where his Ferrari used to be impounded. His phone pinged with alerts. Investors withdraw. From Ashwood Tech, Olivia Ashwood's lawyers file new claims. He tossed the phone into the fireplace of his Bel Air guest house, the only property the court hadn't frozen. It was smaller than what he was used to, though small still meant 5 bedrooms and a pool. Sophia had stopped returning his calls. His father hadn't spoken to him since the board removed him. Most of his friends had gone quiet, too, like cockroaches when the lights came on. He took a long sip of scotch and looked at the framed photo of him and Olivia at their engagement party. Her eyes had been laughing then. His had been calculating. He hadn't seen it before. Now he couldn't look away. Olivia's second move 3 weeks after the party. Olivia attended the Langford Foundation gala, not as a guest, but as a speaker. The press had speculated she'd stay in hiding, perhaps retire from the public eye in quiet dignity. Instead, she took the stage in a tailored black gown, her hand resting on her pregnant belly, and gave a speech not about betrayal but about rebirth. "The greatest inheritance," she said, "is not wealth, it's wisdom, and the greatest legacy I will give my child is not a name, it's protection, integrity, and truth." The room gave a standing ovation. Ethan, watching the live stream from his guest house, downed another drink. "She's playing the long game," he muttered, and she was winning. Sophia Hale couldn't handle the silence anymore. She booked a podcast interview, the kind where the lighting made you look contrite and the questions were pre-approved. But the public wasn't having it. The interview backfired. Twitter erupted with venom. Brands that had stayed neutral now publicly dropped her. Someone leaked text messages between her and Ethan, crude jokes about Olivia, mocking her pregnancy, mocking her intelligence. Sophia went into hiding, and Olivia, she didn't respond publicly. But Harper West added defamation charges to the lawsuit. The deal Ethan didn't see coming. Gregory Ashwood summoned Ethan to a private club downtown. It was empty, closed for repairs, but Ethan knew better. His father didn't do public meltdowns. Gregory poured 2 drinks. Olivia offered us a deal. Ethan blinked. What kind of deal? Drop your claims to all joint properties. Sign over your Ashwood Tech shares. In return, she withdraws the criminal fraud charges. Quietly. Ethan stared. "She's blackmailing me." "No," Gregory said. "She's giving you a way out with a shred of dignity, and you're backing her. I'm protecting the family name. Your name if you still care about it. Ethan stood, seething. She wants everything. She's already taken it, his father replied. This just makes it official. The press conference the next morning, Olivia stood at a podium flanked by attorneys. Effective immediately, Harper announced. Olivia Ashwood becomes majority shareholder in Ashwood Tech. Mr. Ethan Ashwood will resign permanently and has waived all rights to shared marital assets. All proceedings related to fraud and misconduct are resolved in private arbitration. Olivia stepped forward. My story is not one of revenge, she said. It is about restoration. I walked into a ballroom 3 weeks ago carrying proof, but more importantly, I carried resolve. I walked out with my name intact, my future protected, and the strength to start again. Behind her, Langford investors clapped. The world listened. One final visit that evening, Olivia arrived unannounced at the Bel-Air guest house. Ethan opened the door in a faded t-shirt, surprise flickering in his eyes. She stood there, regal, glowing with quiet power. I came to say thank you, she said. For what? He asked bitterly. For setting me free. He laughed dryly. You really got everything you wanted, huh? I got what I deserved, she replied. And someday, when our child asks about their father, I'll be able to say you gave me the push I needed to become more than your wife. She turned to leave. Olivia, he called after her. She paused. I loved you, in my own way. She looked back. That was never enough. And then she was gone. Legacy rewritten within a month. Olivia officially rebranded Ashwood Tech as Langford Innovations. She launched a fund supporting women in business who faced financial abuse. Her image, poised, precise, and powerful, graced the cover of Forbes, Elle, and Vanity Fair. Ethan disappeared from public life entirely, but Olivia didn't revel in destruction. She built something better from the ashes, for her child, for herself, for every woman who'd ever been underestimated. The Hawthorne mansion stood silent now. The chandeliers no longer glittered with party lights. The marble floors didn't echo with heels or laughter. The air, once perfumed with roses and champagne, now smelled of dust and closure. And Olivia Ashwood stood alone in the grand foyer, 8 months pregnant, staring up at the staircase where everything had once felt like a dream. She didn't come to mourn. She came to say goodbye. A house full of ghosts, Olivia moved through each room. One last time. The study where Ethan had kissed her forehead and told her he was working late. The walk-in closet where she found the receipt for a diamond bracelet, one she never received. The nursery they'd started designing together before everything unraveled. She touched the edge of the crib and felt the baby kick, as if reminding her this wasn't an end, but a beginning. A maid entered quietly behind her. Ms. Ashwood, the cars are ready. Thank you, Olivia said, turning one last time toward the floor-to-ceiling windows. The city stretched below her like a promise she had outgrown this house, and the man it was built for. A letter, not a speech. Later that evening, Olivia sat alone in her new penthouse, sleek, modern, and hers alone. On her lap sat an unopened envelope addressed in Ethan's handwriting. The divorce was finalized, the money secured, the properties divided. This was not legal, it was emotional. She opened it carefully. Olivia, I don't know how to be the man you needed. Maybe I never did. You were always more than I deserved. I saw you as a beautiful extension of my empire when you were an empire of your own. If I could undo it, I would. But I know words mean nothing now. Name the child what you wish. If they ever want to know me, I'll be better by then, Ethan. She folded it silently. She didn't cry. She didn't smile. She simply tucked it in a drawer she'd likely never open again. A birth with no shadows, the labor was long but uncomplicated. Olivia gave birth on a clear morning in a private wing of Langford Medical Center. A daughter, healthy, strong, with eyes that held a quiet storm. As Olivia held her close, a single tear slid down her cheek. Not for Ethan, not for what was lost, but for the future she'd reclaimed. 1 year later, Langford Innovations had become one of the most admired startups in the country. Tech for good. Women-led, ruthlessly efficient, and elegantly ethical. Olivia was not just its owner, she was its face. The media had stopped referring to her as Ethan Ashwood's ex-wife. Now, she was Olivia Langford, a name reborn from her own legacy. At a women's leadership summit in New York, she stood backstage with her daughter asleep in her arms, waiting for her cue to speak. Her assistant peeked in. 5 minutes, Olivia. She nodded. Thank you. She looked down at the child. In her arms. Everything I did, she whispered, was to protect you, and I will never let anyone write your story but you. The baby stirred gently, as if understanding. Ethan's last public moment, Ethan Ashwood, wasn't in headlines anymore. A grainy photo had surfaced of him in Lisbon, unshaven, alone at a seaside cafe. Some said he was working with a small consulting firm. Others whispered about therapy, sobriety, an attempted comeback. But none of it mattered now. He was no longer at the center of Olivia's story. He had become what he always feared, a footnote. The balcony scene back at the penthouse. Olivia stood on the balcony. Her daughter, in a white bonnet, nestled against her chest. The skyline stretched before them. So many lights. So many lives. And not one of them knew the full truth of what had happened behind the gates of the Hawthorne mansion. That she'd been betrayed. That she'd been underestimated. That she had risen not just above Ethan, but above the entire illusion. She whispered softly, "This city will never define you. No man ever will. You're not someone's daughter. You are your own legacy." And then, with the baby sleeping peacefully in her arms, she stepped back inside, leaving the world outside. The Ashwoods, with the last word, the end. Tools.